Good morning to our worship service on October 3rd. I'm sitting here in Tennessee at my kid's house on a just spectacularly beautiful day. Mid 60s is the temperature. It's sunny, clear sky. What a day to praise God. Every day should be a day that we praise God, but there are certain days and certain circumstances that just bring that worship out. Over the last several weeks, I've been talking to you about the character of God, about who God is. And as I've said, it's not just about knowing who he is. It's about what God is, or who God is, in relationship to us. We want to be in a relationship with God. And to be able to do that, we need to understand something of God. And these characteristics help us get some sense of the nature of who God is so we can worship. In a book called After You Believe, N.T. Wright talks about worship. He says, to worship the living God, the God we know as Father, Son, and Spirit, is to give voice to our faith, to celebrate our hope, and above all, to express and articulate our love. The worshiping heart will naturally want to tell and retell the story of God and the world, of the God and Israel, of God and Jesus, and of God and one's own personal story. All those things interact. So today, we're going to have a little different worship service. A little less word, or a little fewer words for me, and a little more time to engage in worship. We want to voice our faith. We want to celebrate our hope. We want to articulate our love. We want to tell God that we love him. This is the God who is light and drove out our darkness. The God who is the consuming fire and eats up the dross of our lives. As we said, George MacDonald says, love loves to purity. This God is the God who is gracious, compassionate, merciful, and faithful, and who is love. It is in God that we experience that Hebrew word we talked about last week, hesed. So today we want to speak our faith. We want to celebrate our hope, and we want to articulate our love. I'll forego all our announcements today. Nothing new particularly. But I do want to ask you, since we are doing this virtually, and we know our church tends to be, I want to use the word maybe conservative, but we're not real comfortable with our bodies in worship. What do I mean by that? I want to encourage you today that maybe during a time of prayer, there are several prayers that I'm going to have us pray. Maybe you would use your body and you'd kneel in prayer, away from the eyes of others, because we are self-conscious. Or maybe, and I'm going to have us listen to a song that we listened to last week, So Will I, that speaks about our willingness to respond to God. Maybe when that song proclaims, So will I, that we lift our hands and worship. Our bodies are important. And worship involves not only our words, not only our hearts and our minds, but our bodies. So I'm going to ask you today, you do as you will, but it might change your experience to lift a hand during a song that moves you, or to bow on your knees, or other things that you might choose to do related to worship. So again, we want to tell and retell the story of God's love. And that happens as we voice our faith, celebrate our hope, and articulate our love. And we begin voicing that in the next song, All Creatures of Our God and King.